Hello and welcome to this book analysis of Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. Now this is a great book and I really enjoyed reading it, but I would like to warn you this does contain plot spoilers. I will be going through and overviewing the entire plot of the story, as well as analyzing quotes that I believe were really important to the story. I'll also be going over the characters and some practical life lessons from this book, and I hope you get a lot out of it because I got so much from this novel and I want to share it with you. So, thanks for watching. I'm going to start with the characters. We're going to start with Siddhartha, and Siddhartha is the main character, our protagonist, our hero, the curious character who actually runs away from home in order to pursue his quest for enlightenment. And he even runs away from Buddha's teachings. He even rejects Buddha's teachings to pursue his own path, and he's a really courageous dude. He really is. I think he represents the author's wish for the reader to be more open-minded and to not accept any ideas as dogma and to test things out for yourself. Siddhartha's a wonderful character. Then we have Govinda, the Siddhartha's friend, who is the submissive one in the relationship. He oftentimes, and we can see this throughout the book, he asks Siddhartha for advice. You know, what's the magic pill for this problem? What's the greatest wisdom you can impart to me on how to live my life? He's a follower. He really is. But he's a great dude, and he supports Siddhartha throughout his journey in great ways. Now we have Gautama, Buddha, the enlightened one, and he came in to speak, and Siddhartha and Govinda attended, and he was just completely radiating peace and just amazing. Govinda joins him later on in his teachings, but Siddhartha pursues his own. Now we have Kamala, and this is Siddhartha's lover. Siddhartha actually asks to be her lover, very gentlemanlike of him. She rejects, saying that she needs more gifts, more money, and more fine clothes. Here's a quote from the book that I will say: "You will need much money if you want to be Kamala's friend." A character loved by feminists all around the world, of course, and the Kim Kardashian of the novel, of course. I had to put a picture there. I'll let that run through your mind for a few seconds. Okay, now we will move to Kamaswami, who is the merchant. He's a character that Siddhartha finds very amusing at first because he's so into the whole materialism and money and cash flow and maximizing all the profit at any cost. And unfortunately, in Siddhartha's associations with Kamaswami, he becomes more like Kamaswami. So, watch who you surround yourself with, because even someone as strong-willed as Siddhartha was lured into materialism by these kind of influences. Vasudeva, who is the ferryman, who Siddhartha meets at the very end of the book, and I really admire Vasudeva because he is a great listener. Siddhartha actually compares his listening to that of a god, that he just absorbs all the words like a tree absorbs the wind. Interesting metaphor, but really great. Peaceful man. And finally we have, of the main characters throughout the story, Siddhartha's son, who teaches Siddhartha just incredibly valuable life lessons about sorrow and misery, actually, because Siddhartha's son broke his heart by running away the same way that Siddhartha ran away from his father, so the cycle perpetuated. So these are the main characters of Siddhartha. Now I'm going to go into the plot. I'm going to overview what happened throughout the story, and I'm going to analyze the quotes in a little bit more detail, and hopefully you'll enjoy the story even more. Okay, let's start with the plot. So, Siddhartha is on a quest for knowledge. Actually, a quest for enlightenment. He wants to salvate himself from the self. He wants the cessation of worldly desires and pleasures and he wants, ultimate happiness. I guess what we all want, right? So he leaves home, as I mentioned before, and trains to be a samana. He actually goes on a 28-day fast, puts himself through a lot of physical pain in this for one goal. He learns, and his goal is to experience the peace of an emptied heart. And this is a very, very interesting wording of the goal. Most people wouldn't associate peace with an empty heart, usually a full heart. And actually, Siddhartha makes the transition in the end that this was not the way to go. And he learns that true wisdom cannot be taught in words. So the books, gotta put an X over them. And they are incredibly valuable. That's why I'm, talking about this book right here. But in the end, it's all about experience. So Siddhartha actually talks about that. This quote here is, he says, "The reason I don't know anything about myself is because I'm afraid of myself. I will no longer try to escape Siddhartha." And this is actually after he goes to see the Buddha speak. And he realizes that no teacher can really salvate him. No teacher can give him salvation. The only salvation he'll ever find in his life will be from himself. And this compares maybe in modern life, taking courses, maybe what I'm doing here, maybe I'm very guilty of this by doing this analysis, that we try to find answers through books, through teachers, when in reality it's experience that's the greatest teacher. So that's the beginning of the story. Now we move on. This is later on, actually. This is right on the same path. He leaves Govinda, his best friend, and Gautama, the Buddha, to pursue his own path. And he actually leaves, and he's in a lot of peace. He feels a lot of peace. He radiates in peace. People are just amazed at his aura. He eventually sees Kamala, the previously mentioned Kim Kardashian, and he can't help but be enamored by her appearance. So he actually sets out a goal to be lovers with Kamala. He says to her, regarding himself in the third person, because he's cool like that, he's Siddhartha, he says, "Listen, Kamala, when you throw a stone into the water, it finds the quickest way to the bottom of the water. It is the same when Siddhartha has an aim, a goal. Siddhartha does nothing. He waits, he thinks, he fasts. He is drawn by his goal, for he does not allow anything to enter his mind which opposes his goal. Everyone can perform magic. Everyone can reach his goal if he can think, wait, and fast." And this is just a quote packed full of good stuff. Basically, he set his goal, and when he set his goal, and when he set his goal, he did not allow, as this quote says, he didn't allow anything to deviate his mind from achieving that goal. I really like the metaphor when you throw a stone into the water. It's gonna find the quickest way down all the time. So if we can have that mindset about our goal setting, I wonder how successful we would be. I would think pretty darn successful. Wow. Siddhartha, you're my hero. Anyways, and then Siddhartha meets Kamaswami, of course, the merchant. The merchant is actually startled because Siddhartha has no possessions. He comes in with like really bad clothes and just he owns nothing. And Siddhartha responds, he says, "I am certainly without possessions, but of my own free will. So I am not in need," which goes to show that if you choose something, then maybe you're not suffering. I don't know, just a thought. If you choose a life of pain, that Siddhartha did choose, when he was a samana, was he really suffering? Maybe. Maybe not. Just something interesting to think about. So, in his endeavors with like all the materialistic pleasures of love and money, he eventually becomes more like Kamaswami. He becomes very materialistic and obsessive. And he actually begins to despise himself for it. You see money creeping into the picture slowly because that's how it got Siddhartha. Property, possessions, and riches had also finally trapped him. They were no longer a game and a toy. They had become a chain and a burden. And this led Siddhartha actually. He left town. He could not take it anymore. He was in this materialistic cycle for a very long time, for years, until he reached a breaking point of misery. And he fell into a depression, attempted suicide. But he didn't succeed in suicide, of course. Govinda was actually by the river that Siddhartha fell asleep at when he was trying to commit suicide. And he kept an eye on him to make sure that he didn't drown or, do anything, brash. So this was a real representation of friendship, I think. Govinda was a real friend for looking out for him, for looking out for his best interest. And in that case, it was not dying. Govinda actually stated that he'd never seen someone with such nice hair, clothes, and shoes on a pilgrimage. And Siddhartha replied, there's the logo of friendship. Siddhartha replied, the world of appearances is transitory. That basically don't judge a book by its cover. And he also compared his old life to Govinda of materialism to a soft, well-upholstered hell. That's a really powerful quote. Does it say anything about the materialism in... I live in the U.S., so things are a little bit materialistic, actually a lot. So maybe we are living in a soft, well-upholstered hell if we put our love in possessions instead of forming social connections. I don't know. Again, something to think about. So, as we go on, Siddhartha actually walks along the river, and he falls in love with the river. Yeah, romantic, right? He fell in love with the river. Another reason that this story is awesome. He actually met the ferryman of the river and said just how amazing the river is. And the ferryman replies, making another assumption, you would soon lose your taste for it. It is not for people in fine clothes. Another judgment. But Siddhartha eventually convinces, because he's, got great communication skills, he convinces Vasudeva, the ferryman, to take him under his wing. And he trains with Vasudeva, and, he just admires his listening skills the most, as I previously mentioned in the characters. He said, the Vasudeva says, the river taught me how to listen, and one can learn everything from it. The river also talks about, this is more of a mention about being in the present moment, and, the importance of listening rather than speaking. Now we move on with the story. Oh, there's a picture of the river. Very nice. So one day, actually, word goes out that Gautama is dying. So many of the monks cross the river to get to Buddha, but Kamala is there, our favorite Kamala, and her son crossed the river. And actually, her son is Siddhartha's son, that he left unknowingly when he left his life of materialism. So they cross the river, and unfortunately, this is very, very tragic. A snake bites Kamala, and it's actually a poisonous snake, and unfortunately, Kamala does not survive the bite from the snake. If it's any consolation, she does die happy in Siddhartha's arms, but this is a very, it's a really sad event in the book. But she did leave Siddhartha's son. And Siddhartha eventually he began taking care of his son, but soon realized that they're not compatible with each other as father and son. They have completely different ideals of what it means to live. Siddhartha, he's not into possessions, he's more into spiritual well-being, whereas his son has grown up completely in this former material world that Siddhartha had grown to detest. So it just did not work out. But Siddhartha continued to suffer with his son. He loved his son so much that he would accept a life of misery with his son than a life of happiness without his son. And this crushes him even more when his son cannot take it anymore and his son runs away. And this completes the cycle because if we recall, Siddhartha ran away from his father and now his son ran away from him. So, and it's ironic. It's very ironic. So one day, and this is the last we're wrapping it up here, the last 5 pages of the novel. And this is my favorite part because this is just the guts of this story where the real treasure lies. Govinda, again, his friend, crosses the river and asks Siddhartha again for wisdom about life. He's always looking for that magical piece of advice. And Siddhartha responds. He says, "Perhaps you seek too much, that as a result of your seeking you cannot find." And then he goes on, he says, "Seeking means to have a goal. Finding means to be free and receptive, to have no goal." But Govinda is still insistent on asking Siddhartha for the right way to live. Again, Siddhartha replies. He says that wisdom is not communicable. The wisdom which a wise man tries to communicate always sounds foolish. And knowledge can be communicated, but not wisdom. So the main message here is wisdom must come from experience. And to wrap this all up, the concluding message here that I found out, it's that love is the most important thing in the world, greater than knowledge, greater than wisdom, greater than, monetary wealth, even greater than happiness. Now, love is a very ambiguous concept, but I believe, according to the definition in this book, it's basically the connection that we have with all living beings. That's, unmistakably there. The bond that we have with, everyone, every living being. And it sounds a little cheesy. It sounds kind of like spiritual new age woo-woo bullshit. But it's not if you think about it. We are all connected. We're all human. We all, have the same thought. In a way, we have the same desires. We have the same thoughts. Most of us, at least. Hopefully. And it's the binding force of all humanity. So that's the message that I got from Siddhartha. The main one. There's 2 main messages here. It's that wisdom comes from experience, and that no matter how many books you read, you can read all the books in the world, but until you actually go out there and do something with the knowledge you have, until you make your own mistakes, because Siddhartha made plenty of his own mistakes, you won't really learn much. Action is worth 2 times, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, 50 times more than theoretical knowledge, depending on the circumstance. But the concluding message, it's always worth more, and love is the most important thing in the world. So I want to leave you with 3 life lessons, 3 actual steps you can take, once you've read this book. Again, as I mentioned before, action, the only way we can obtain wisdom. And reading has a lot of merits. It helps us find the right path. Like this book, Siddhartha, huge merit to reading it and understanding it. But when it comes down to it, you got to take action. So what projects can you start working on today? Anything that drives humanity towards love is a viable option, and I'll discuss some examples in a minute here. Number 2, find out what life is like when you stop seeking information, when you turn off, you know, you've probably heard this a bunch of times, like unplug your cell phones, go off of Facebook, email. What would happen if you just went on a Facebook or like a TV fast or an internet blog fast for 7 days, maybe 30 days if you're extreme. I don't know. Go ahead, try it. I'm probably gonna try it. I really am, because life is better when you find. And love is the greatest wisdom. So how can we apply this lesson of love? Well, some actions that I know is you can definitely donate to a local food pantry. They're always in need of canned goods, or some other charitable organization like a local charity is very good, a national charity. Maybe you can send a kind message, an email, a Facebook message, even though this contradicts with number 2, a phone call, handwritten letter to a friend that you haven't spoken to in a while, and send it with a loving energy. And maybe you can even volunteer at volunteermatch.org. They have a bunch of amazing opportunities. Maybe a nursing home in your area. They're always looking for volunteers. Whatever the case, just do it with love, because that's what the world needs. Sounds cheesy, but it's true. So, thank you so much for watching this Siddhartha analysis. If you have any questions, please contact me at josh@optimisticwellness.com. I would love to hear from you, or criticisms, comments, suggestions. I'm very open to this stuff. And thank you, and I wish you the best. Take care.